everybody. Sorry about that. I was
No.
introducing myself live with my pen as a drumstick. My name's Claire Kennedy, and I have the gorgeous Kevin Kennedy with me, who will introduce himself in a little minute. So if you don't know me, my name is Claire Kennedy still, and I am the founder and CEO of a very tiny little charity in Brighton called Kennedy Street, and we are a recovery charity. What does that mean? It means we're a peer-led project led by people in recovery, for people in recovery, or for anybody that's interested in recovery. And what we do in the community is we help those who are interested in getting involved with our project to understand recovery more, and also how to achieve their greatest potential in recovery, if it's recovery that they're interested in. And we do that via workshops, we do that via coaching, and we do that via personal development programs that we run, where we help people with employability skills and setting up their own social enterprise. And I mean, we are very small, but we're very excited for the future, and we've had some great results as well. So yeah, I'm going to let Kev introduce himself and the rest of today, what we've got going on. So over to you, Kev.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kevin Kennedy. I hope you're all well and keeping safe. As I said, we are Kennedy Street, and what we do here is over the last couple of months or so, while we've been doing this, we've got so many inquiries and questions about recovery, and I agree it's a bit of a mystery if you've never looked into it, or you have looked online. It's all a bit, I don't know, I can't understand it. So here we try to simplify things, and all these questions that you've got, we can answer them. You can ask them anonymously in the thing at the side there, which is where the questions come in. And we want to speak to people to explain to you who have actually been through it, who have been through addiction and are now in recovery. So all the questions that you've always been dying to ask about recovery, now is your time. This is a safe space. This is where you can get your information. And today's talk is about Cocaine Anonymous. Now, it's worth pointing out that Cocaine Anonymous is not just about cocaine. It's about all drugs that people are into nowadays, and you can get your information here. So today we've got Edward and Joe B, who are going to tell us share their hope and their recovery. So up to you, Joe B. Joe B.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Joe, and I'm an addict. Again, from Cocaine Anonymous, and it's a fellowship of men and women who share their experience and their strength and their hope with each other, so that we can all solve our common problem, maybe what brought us here today, which is our addiction, and to help other people to recover from their addiction. I'm actually a member of a committee of Cocaine Anonymous called Public Information. I do it in the UK. And our purpose is to tell everyone, professionals and the fellowship at large, that we're here and we're free. We're confidential, we're non-profit, there's no dues or fees to being part of Cocaine Anonymous. We're just here to help recovering addicts to keep clean, to recover from their addiction one day at a time. Our members, the fellas around me, the women around me, they've all demonstrated continuous abstinence from cocaine and all other mind-altering substances. We're not just cocaine specific, and we are willing to share how recovery works in our lives. Strength and hope, our experience is how we can identify with each other that we know in a way that we're legit. One of the things that happens when you go to a meeting is that you listen to someone's story and you think, yeah, I identify with that. Might not have been the exact same journey, might not have been the same drugs, but gosh, I identify with the feelings and their experience. I know myself that I was brought up by alcoholics. Alcoholism was quite big in my family. Different kind of alcoholics, the poke you in the chest and shouty kind of drunks. the shouting on the street kind of alcoholics, kind of alcoholics whose hands shook until they'd had a drink to steady themselves, the kind of alcoholics who seem beautiful and lovely in their everyday life, but at home they just can't stop drinking. And that's one of the things that binds us all together, is that we don't have it in control. But, you know, for example, my mum and my dad, they taught me to be good. They taught me the love of life. I was brought up in a good home in that respect. We had food on the table. But I felt a bit different. I just felt a bit uneasy, and perhaps uneasy in myself. And as I grew up and I discovered drugs, I think what I was looking for was some peace inside. I was trying to fill some sort of hole and to feel calm and good. And I kind of thought I might have found it with weed, but actually weed made me more paranoid. But even though it made me more paranoid and I didn't like what it was doing to me, I could not stop smoking it. In fact, I had a friend once who turned around to me, a great guy, really beautiful dreadlocks, a cool musician that I lived with. And he turned around to me smoking a spliff and he said, "Joe, I think I've got a problem with weed. It makes me paranoid and I don't want to smoke it, but I can't stop." And you know what? The next day he cut all his hair off. However that helped him, he cut all of his hair off. He moved down to London. He got the job of his dreams, which admittedly was working in sewers, but that's what he wanted to do. He got a beautiful girl and he lost loads of weight. And you know what? I hated him for it. I absolutely hated him for it, because I hated him for where I felt he was leaving me, which is stuck in addiction. So, you know, my story is one of burning through all the drugs, all the party drugs, really enjoying raving and free parties in the forests and traveling abroad and letting loose, meeting new people. It was all great until it wasn't great anymore, when there was no one else around but me and the drugs, when I wanted the party to keep on going, but it was just me and the drugs, and then misery and tears and pushing people away and using people and stealing my kids' pocket money. You know, it goes to some really horrible, dark places for a lot of people. Not everyone. You don't have to have hit the same rock bottom as me. It doesn't matter where on the elevator you decide to get off. The thing is, it's we cannot help as a fellowship you to find it within yourselves to make the decision that you'd like to give up drugs. But when you do, we completely, I'm almost crying now thinking about it, but when you do, we completely understand what you're going through. We absolutely identify and we have a solution. I found personally that my life had just become unmanageable, absolutely unmanageable. Like, I was walking around work. I managed to hold a job together somehow, and I thought everyone was a misery, a miserable cow, or he's a dick, or sorry for swearing. And everyone was just miserable with me. And I thought it was them. And only now do I see that I was rolling in late, disheveled, stinking. I'd managed to get my work done, but I was selfish and self-seeking and self-centered and just not a nice person. And gradually, even that, I couldn't hold down the job. I wasn't paying my rent. Everything was always by the skin of my teeth. And although it led to loads of escapades, it was just a bit of a mess. So I've tried to give up drugs in many ways. I've chained myself to radiators. I've locked myself in rooms. I've moved country. I've split up from girlfriends. I've done everything and its dog to give up drugs, because I knew I didn't want to be trapped in this miserable place of just earning a bit of money to give to someone else so I could get some relief for some precious minutes. And in the end, I managed to find Cocaine Anonymous. And from the very first day, and this won't be the same for everyone, but from the very first day I was introduced to it, it just clicked with me. It's a spiritual program, but it's not aligned with any religion. Each one of us is free to define our own spirituality. We have a higher power, it's called. And what we do, we kind of just turn ourselves over to this faith that in goodness, really. I actually personally replaced the word God with good. And I've got this conscious contact with my own conscience, if I can describe it like that. Just like my mum brought me up to be good, I found it again. I found that nice Joe again. And I can tell you quite clearly, with pride, but not egotism, my life is really good. my life is really good. I have the life that I've always wanted. I have a beautiful family in a family home. I've got lovely kids. I've got a partner who I only just deserve, because she's just so nice, such a lovely lady. And we wake up happy every day. I can say that with my head held high. I wake up happy every day, and I go to sleep happy every day. And what the program's done, it's taught me to identify all my defects of character and all the things that made me so selfish and self-centered. It's shown me that I have a part to play in all these resentments that I've built up over the years, and all the fears that seem to have been locked up in me. And I've managed to let everything go. And I do this through trusting in another man. And I'm completely open and honest with him. And that's how we work in the fellowship with a sponsor. Everyone's heard of a sponsor, that's how it works. And we go through all the wreckage of our past, and we end up making amends to people, going back to our past and yeah, just looking at our part in problems from the past and owning up to it. And through that, building relationships again. And then from there, once we've taken a personal inventory and admitted to all the things we've done, it's just a matter of going on and passing the message on through sponsoring other people, helping other people, going through the work, as it's called. And that's where I found PI, public information, to be of great help to myself, because, you know, there's a parable, isn't there, about talents, about not hiding your talents, but bringing them up and making them shine. And I think every single one of us, every single person that's listening to this has a talent. And it's about using your talent in life, using it to help other people, using it to help yourself, using it to shine in the world and be a good spirit. And I've found mine through public information, the ability to help communicate the message to the professionals, communicate the message to the fellowship. And it actually aligns with what I do for a living, which is really good. As part of public information on a UK level, we get to see all the work that happens around the country in what are called districts, if you can think about them as counties almost. And you'll find that you will be in a district, and there will be meetings close to you right now. They've gone online. Currently, most of the meetings are online, and they're there to help you. They're there. There'll always be a meeting at any time of the day. And one of the things that you find right now with COVID is the fact that whereas you would have noticed, for example, if your colleague had a problem with drink, they'd be disappearing to the car every now and again. They'd be coming in a little disheveled. They might smell of alcohol. They'll be coming in late. Now more than ever, those signs are hidden, and people's weekends start on any day. There is no "I'll only drink after work." There'll be a bottle of wine in the fridge while you're working. And then before you know it, there'll be a glass of wine next to you while you're working. And then eventually you'll just have the bottle of wine next to you and you'll start working. If you feel like you have a problem with drugs or alcohol, if you feel that you can't stop, or you feel it's affecting you or your family in any way, we are here to help. And I would encourage people to reach out to Cocaine Anonymous, CAUK. Google it, that's the easiest way, and you'll find that there is a solution. There's also a helpline that's on the screen now. I encourage everyone that feels they might have a problem to reach out, and you'll find that there's people just like you. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for coming and so beautifully putting and simply putting how CA can help people and how it's changed your life. You know, it is an amazing fellowship that you're a member of, and you know, just for everybody to hear the gifts and to be reminded of the gifts that they actually have themselves, which is beautiful. And on that note, I think we'll introduce our next speaker, who's also a member of Cocaine Anonymous, Ed. So introducing Ed, who's going to tell you all about his story, share his experience, strength and hope with you, and also share some of his gifts as well. So over to you, Ed.
Hi, sorry, I think we were both muting and unmuting together. Hello, my name's Edward and I'm an addict. And yeah, thank you, Joe, for describing the whole kind of thing so well and so beautifully and with such personal aplomb. And thank you guys for having me on to tell my story. And just at the beginning, Joe was kind of talking about that we all have different stories, but we all have one very important thing in common, which is that we can't stop. We don't have the power to stop on our own power. And when I first started coming to meetings, one of the most important pieces of advice I was given was to focus on the similarities rather than the differences, because you know, a big part of me didn't want to be in those meetings. A big part of me didn't want to be listening to these stories. A big part of me wanted to crack the problem by myself, because I couldn't accept that that this was something I couldn't do, that it wasn't just about me somehow getting my shit together, that it, sorry for swearing, that it wasn't somehow, you know, for the whole of my life, I felt like I somehow just hadn't been given the rule book to life. Like other people were just going about their business, kind of bumbling along and having a fairly decent time. And I was just consistently very confused with how to interact with other people, or why I felt the way I did, or whatever it was. And drugs started to kind of take the edge off that, really started to take the edge off that. And it was that kind of thinking and that kind of feeling that I identified as soon as I was in the rooms at meetings. And that really helped me to focus on the similarities rather than the differences, because I wasn't as Joe said, you don't need to hit the same kind of rock bottoms that you might hear from other people. I hadn't been to prison. I'd been chucked in a cell one night for getting caught on the street, but I'd never, you know, I hadn't had a wife to lose. I hadn't had a house to lose. I was fairly young when I came into the program, about 24, 25. And so you don't have to have gone to all of the troubles we have. But if you do identify that, that, you know, you struggle with controlling your drug use, and if you're like me in the sense that my constant obsession was to be that guy that could chop his dreads off and move to London and have a new life, on his own willpower and on his own power, so it seems. You know, my constant obsession was that I could get a bag of weed and leave it in the drawer till the weekend and have a couple of smokes and that'd be it. That was my constant obsession, was to have more control over what I was taking than I did. And it was that more than anything that really brought me to my knees. It was that really broke my spirit, was the fact that I could not just, I just felt like a struggling dead-end little boy most of the time, because I just couldn't get my life together. I couldn't have the self-discipline to choose the right moment. And similarly, I went through all the various party drugs. I had a very good time at times, but to be honest, a lot of those times I was just looking forward to when I could get back to my room and smoke a joint, because that was easier. Then that was far more reliable than trying to interact with other people and wanting the party to feel a certain way and just trying to get the right drug at the right moment or the right person at the right moment for it to feel that certain way, and just never quite hitting this mark or hitting it very rarely. And then this kind of just struggle to feel all right and to feel in the flow of life, and never really managing it. And all the time, not being able to control what I was taking and when I was taking it. And so yeah, I mean, and in terms of how I identified in the beginning and how I didn't, you know, I came in with, I'd let go of most of the party drugs. I kind of stopped them, and it was weed that brought me to my knees. and my lack of power around it. And I knew I'd had a problem with it for so long that it just made my life harder. But in the moment of those first two tokes, it made my life far better. And that was the paradox that kind of drove me into the ground. And so when I turned up as a stoner and I'm listening to heroin addicts and crack addicts and cocaine addicts, there's a lot of their story that's quite different. But what was immediately obvious was this similarity of just feeling separate in life and feeling like I was missing the rule book and feeling like just feeling so self-conscious and failing at life, and just failing. I was always told that I had great potential and that I was just not living up to it and that I was just not doing good enough. And fair enough, that's their stuff, whoever those people were, but it's also how much I took that on and how much that depleted my spirit. And my problem is that I have a massive ego and a very low self-esteem. And that means that I really kind of force myself on other people at times, but also feel like I'm constantly getting it wrong, or that I won't get it right, or that I'm just not good enough. I mean, that's when I'm not well. And that's when I would consistently reach out for drugs, because that was the solution. Drugs weren't my problem. They were the solution to that problem that I'm describing. And that's what I found in common with everyone else in those rooms, pretty much. So I felt at home. But it still took me a while to really kind of accept I was an addict like this. And I was so scared of accepting myself as an addict, and that would be the wrong thing, that I'd shut this trap door by doing that, and that I'll convince myself of this lie and I'll be on this wrong path, that I've joined this weird cult and there's no way back. And it just took some time of turning up to meetings and sharing that I felt that, and looking for my own experience with this program in terms of starting to share my own experience of my own drug use and how I felt and what was going on in my life, and asking those questions of other people. And then other people who'd already done the program showing me the book and showing me specific points in the book that described exactly what I was talking about, and asked me those specific questions of, do I have an obsession to use until I use, and then once I've started using, can I not stop? And that is my experience. With weed, it's not as insatiable, perhaps, as when I was taking cocaine. It's a little bit, but it's more like, I had a relapse after 8 months clean because I convinced myself I wasn't an addict. I disidentified again. And that was about really coming back after that, was recognizing that the seed had been planted when I did a wine tasting at work, I think. And I was already not practicing my program, not doing the steps, not taking inventory, not sharing, not going to enough meetings. I was already taking back on my program. And then this moment turned up where I thought it was okay to do a wine tasting at work. And I think that somehow just laid the seed in my mind, but also in my body. And that was my moment of no return. That was my picking up the first one and then not being able to stop until I'd gone on like an 8-month gradual relapse, but that led me into a place where I was homeless, had ruined a fantastic new relationship, was in a brand new city all by myself, and wanted to tear my own fucking skin off again. And that's where I was left. And I walked back into the rooms and I shared what had just happened to me over those months, and where my head was at just now, and my worries and my fears, and everything fell off my shoulders, and I knew I was in the right place again. I'm becoming emotional as well, just as I share that. That was such a beautiful moment in Liverpool. I was there to do a show for a friend, and I called an old CA friend of mine. She was actually an ex-girlfriend, but we'd stayed in touch. And I said, look, I'm totally I don't have internet access. I don't have people's numbers. I'm done. I'm absolutely done, and I don't know what to do. Can you please find me a meeting in Liverpool? And she sent me the address. She sent me the way to get the bus, and I got there, and I had that moment of coming back to the program, and yeah, I'm just so grateful that those people were there, and they're everywhere, and we're everywhere in every city, and we're ready for that person to walk in. So. I've shared for a long time, so I'll just try and do my sort of service volunteering part. I'll try to describe that incredibly briefly, and if you want to go into more detail, you can ask me. But incredibly briefly, I found myself wanting to volunteer and find work at festivals. I couldn't get to festivals when I was using, because I'm the kind of addict that if I get 20 quid, it's going on a bag of weed. I'm not saving it up for a festival ticket, and I don't have the capacity to organize a bunch of friends to get to a festival. So I don't know how other users did that, but my experience was I got to festivals when I was sober, and I volunteered at them and had a great time, and I met new people, and I had a different kind of spirit that I was bringing there. I wasn't worried about who I was there. I was confident that I was bringing something to those places, and that I could enjoy other people's company because they could enjoy mine, because I knew that I was bringing something. I wasn't there to try and steal something from the show and steal something from the vibe. I was part of bringing that meeting of souls in festivity and in celebration. So anyway, I found that when I was on the road doing that, there weren't meetings, and I was seeing other people that were well into the disease, well inside active addiction, that needed help. And there were a couple of moments where I just did impromptu meetings in people's vans or in random tents we could find, where I just got the book out and we ran a little meeting between 2 or 3 of us. And so this gradually just grew into the idea that, like, you know, we need to try and find a way to just get meetings let's just take meetings to festivals properly. And again, I'll try not to go into too much detail. There's a great story about how I found this giant tent. Basically, it was a bit of a God moment. And I came across this tent that was perfect for meetings while I was tatting at the end of a festival. And I was like, yeah, this is our meeting tent. I found it. And so I took it, I organised to take it to a festival that a friend of mine runs, a little one in Kent. And we had our first sort of, I got a few friends together from Bristol, and we went down. And in preparation for that, I rang some other people in public information of CA, just to check that I was doing everything right in terms of traditions and using the CA name for meetings and how I would run it and stuff, and just checking things out so that I didn't step on any toes or get anything wrong or represent the fellowship in the wrong way. And in that conversation, that person said, well, listen, it sounds like we just need to give you the power to have a committee, and or just remind you that you have the power to create a committee if you want to, and then bring that idea, and we can give you a budget to run that. So that sparked the idea, and we've been going for a couple of years now, taking meetings and to festivals and running a PI stall at festivals where we just have a stall outside the tent where we share leaflets and our experience briefly to people who walk past and want to find out more. So yeah, apologies for the quick fire speaking, just to try and get as much of it out as possible. Yeah, and thanks again for having us on. And there's lots of opportunities in my committee at the moment, because we're gearing up for next year, so I can give that information out as well, of getting in touch with me personally if you're a CA member and you want to get involved and you're listening. I can give out that information later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As ever, listening to those stories is a privilege, and I thank you for your honesty. And I'm going to be devil's advocate here to a certain extent. I mean, people smoking weed now he's all over the place, kids especially. So what would you say to a parent who is, firstly, there's 2 parts to this question. What would you say to a parent who thinks that their son, daughter is smoking too much weed? And what are the myths about weed, and what are the truths? You know, because I don't want to preempt it, but you know, is it a gateway to further drugs? But firstly, what would you say to parents of kids who think they're probably smoking too much weed?
Okay, well, I'm not an expert on the science of that drug or the the psychological or physical effects, particularly apart from my own experience. And sure, it can sort of act as a gateway. Is that true for me? I think if you're going to go there with drugs, you're going to go there. I think it's kind of my experiences and talking to other addicts is it's kind of hardwired into our life somehow that we just have to go through this journey of everything going terribly badly wrong and then coming out the other end. And how far that goes before we get help is on a scale for sure. I was very lucky I got in before it got too bad. But if I think perhaps finding a way to ask the question like, can you be sure that you're choosing to do this? Can you be sure that there's a choice in this? I don't know. I guess my own politics in general, and this is my own opinion, is that everything in moderation can be okay. I don't know. I just know that it's this thing about a lack of choice that's the most important thing, because we know when we're doing ourselves in, and we know when something becomes unhealthy for us, I think. And then it becomes about, well, can we make the choice to do that thing to ourselves or not? And so it's about trying to find a way to ask that question of like, do you feel this is in control? Do you feel like this is just a laugh, or is it going beyond that? Or is this something you enjoy, or is it something that actually you're struggling with? Do you have choice over this? Do you have the power of choice over this? Because if they don't, and when they recognize they don't, that's when quite potentially they're an addict, and it's going to go as far as it's going to go until they've suffered enough to reach out for help. And yeah, I think as a young person, as a teenager, naturally part of life is trying things out, making mistakes and getting stuck, and learning eventually how to reach out for help. And I think to some degree that's inevitable, but just we can't. One of the most important things I learned in recovery was that we can't control other people. I have such a desire to control other people, because I'm convinced that their actions are that my feelings are because of other people's actions. Once I started to take responsibility for my own stuff and my own journey, that's really the biggest part of what recovery teaches me. And in the same respect, it's not your fault if you're a parent with a child who's lost the power over drugs. It is not your fault. You are one entity within your child is part of your community. Your child is part of the community of the world. There's a load of other things going on that you cannot be responsible for, and all you can do is show them that there's some help out there if and when they want it. I'm not a parent. This is all, this could all be terribly bad advice. But I don't think I could have changed for my mum before I did. This is it. I don't think I could have changed for them before I did. And to some degree, they accepted that I was making a choice they didn't agree with, and that they were just going to make sure that my base needs were met and that they could pick me up when I fell over. And that worked for me in the end. That's all I can say.
Very nice points, Ed. If I can add to that briefly, I love the point you said about being responsible for your part in things. That's really important. There's a couple of things that cloud the picture when it comes to kids. One of the issues is that often kids will discover drugs, marijuana, alcohol, etc. at a certain phase in their life, potentially around 13, 14, 15, and actually using weed or having a drink with their friends, for the first time they have some control. For the first time, everything else is out of control in their life, you know, where they live, what they do, what time they get up, they're told what to do. And this might be one of the only things in their life where they feel they have control over it, because it's their thing. They're in their mate's thing, but it's their thing. You know, the best bit of advice I would give to people, I've got a teenager, an old teenager. The best bit of advice would be absolute honesty and consistency of message. The ability to have an open dialogue. You know, my son sidled up to me last year and said, "Papa, let me ask you something." And I knew something was coming just from his body language. And he said, "What do you think of what do you think of acid? You know, what do you think of acid?" And you know, I said to him, well, I took him outside. You know, let's go for a walk. I pointed across the road and said, "Look, imagine on the other side of the road over there, there's a really, really big, massive, black, gaping hole. You're skirting the edges of it right now. And there's not necessarily any problem with you taking acid, but when you're in it, you may make some massive life decisions that can have huge implications for the rest of your life. Whether school is cool, you know, silly little things like that. You know, what is right, what is wrong. And actually you can make the wrong decisions because you become completely powerless in that moment. Weed in itself isn't a problem. Alcohol isn't a problem. It's a problem to me because I'm an addict. So although I'm, you know, a really nice guy during the day, if I have a drink, I might be okay. If I have two, it's like, ugh. Once I'm on my third, I'm gone, and nothing's going to stop me now. I'm just going to start doing those drugs. And it's weird, but it's true. We have a saying that one is too many and 1,000 never enough. And it really applies to me. But getting back to kids, it is a gateway drug because it opens a gateway for more freedoms and to get in with certain people and to have a kind of status of cool when mentally you might not be cool. You might not be able to make the right decisions, etc. But absolute honesty, and what I said to my son about that question of acid is, wait until your next birthday and you can do it at home. Keep it close. You can be in the safe. I know where you are. You've got music. You're warm. You've got food. I'll leave the house and you can stay at someone else's, and I'm only a phone call away. And you know what? He did wait, and then he did do it. And there were parts he really enjoyed and there were parts he didn't, and he hasn't done it since. So yeah, there's some advice in there somewhere for sure.
It's amazing. Yeah. And we've got kids. We've got a 14-year-old and 16-year-old. So we get it, completely get it. And you know, really appreciate both of your experiences, really. And right the way through both of your shares, I was getting emotional. I was on the edge of nearly having a blub on a number of occasions because it's powerful stuff. I think what you're doing, what we're doing, you know, when you make that leap, and when I say leap of faith, it's not a religious experience, it's a leap into the unknown, isn't it? It's like you've touched on, you and Ed, you know, it really is. We don't know what it's going to be like. And just getting back to what you were saying about gateway drugs, for me personally, as you know, people know, and friends and loved ones know, I'm a recovering addict of 22 years this year. And for me, I think the gateway drug was tobacco, not marijuana. I started on tobacco first, and tobacco sort of opened a world up of addictive nature, really, rather than it wasn't a personality thing. It was just I was drawn to all of these sort of like not allowed, enticing
Claire,
figures.
Claire,
Yeah,
you're right. You're right. I can remember stood in a little foresty bit next to the road. I've actually got a couple of teeth missing from smoking cigarettes in the wrong places because some old lads came over and just started leathering us. But actually before that, for me, it was coffee. When I was a little kid, like 6, 7, 8 years old, I'd see my parents go to France, drink coffee. I was making coffees and stirring the spoon and putting so much sugar and coffee in that when I let go of the spoon, if it slowly chink to the side, I knew I couldn't get any more in. And then I'd drink one and just go milli in the house, left alone going completely milli. But absolutely. So although marijuana has been saddled with this gateway drug label, because it literally was labeled by a sheriff one day ages ago in America, it is indeed about doing things and finding out that it changes the way you feel.
Yeah.
And in the end, whenever you want to change the way you feel, you turn to something. And for people like us, it can be drink or alcohol. Alcohol or drugs. For other people, it can be food. You know, you can get addiction around gambling, shopping, all sorts of things, all sorts of behaviors. But ultimately, it's about changing the way we feel. And touching on faith, you know, we and my partner, one of the growing up things about being in recovery is understanding that everything will be okay as long as we continue to be good. I've got complete faith that everything will be fine. So we've got a problem. My immediate reaction is to start making fear-based decisions. But I've had all my fears removed through doing the 12 steps. So now I'm not in resentment about anything. I can look at myself. I can take some inventory, get myself in a good place. And then after that, make some decisions with having faith that it'll all be good if I'm good. And do you know what? If it works out not to be good, it doesn't matter, because even that will be good. Even that will be good. It's amazing when I think I want choice A, even if I sit back and think, because it tells us in the book, take a moment, pause, step back. Even when I pause, look back, and I go for option A, if life doesn't deliver it, I find out option B was brilliant. You know, there's actually the primary option. It was perfect for me in this moment on my journey at this time. Perfect. And that just keeps on happening. And they say we have these little moments. People call them God moments. People call them, God, you know. But the thing is, it kept happening. It's happened from day one. All these little things, it just keeps on rolling and rolling and rolling. And I don't want to break the spell. I'm just going to keep being good, because good things happen.
Yeah, it's a good way to live your life, isn't it? Really. Kev, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask?
I'm being devil's advocate for people that may be listening. Right, say for example, I'm a professional. I pay my bills on time. I turn up at work on time. But every Friday night, or maybe every Saturday night, maybe twice a month or whatever, I go down the pub. I get myself a gram, and I use it, and I have a great time. What would be the danger signs for that kind of person? What would be the things that should really make him stop or her stop and think that this drug is getting out of hand in their life?
There's two things, Kevin, that are classic. Number one is there's no problem with doing what you just said, other than it's illegal. But there is no problem beyond that. If what you're doing is trying to heighten that time you've got with your friends, you might think it's precious time. I'm only out for this time, etc. But what you may find, if you're not a heavy drinker or a casual drinker or a heavy user, but the difference between that and an addict is once the party's over, do you still want to keep using? Are you able to put that away and get it back out in a month? Or actually, do you find yourself on Saturday morning a bit wired and thinking, okay, I'm knackered now, I've got to face the day. I'll just have one little line to get myself up off the sofa and get back into life, take the kids out to the park or something. So it's, are you the last person standing all the time looking for the party to keep going and keep going? And two, does it start to become used to change the way you're feeling, to start to live life? And the third one is the weekend starts on Thursday suddenly, and then on Wednesday, and then on Tuesday, and then there is no beginning and end. There's just one period of either feeling crap or feeling great, and you'll keep on using drugs to bring yourself up and down. That's the normal pattern. That snapshot you've just told us about isn't the problem. The problem is when it starts to bleed everywhere around.
Right.
And that's my opinion. Sorry, I really want to say about everything here. This is just my opinion. There's a lad that we're sponsoring. Great guy, great professional. God, he's got so much life ahead of him, and he's going to be big. He's 19. I'm not going to give any more details than that, obviously, but I just want to impress upon you how impressed I am with him. And he's 19. Yeah. And what he sees is that exactly what you've described is happening to him now. And what he's finding is he'll even pop out at lunchtime to make himself feel a bit perky and then go back into work and storm through work. Yeah, great. And he's come up to us and said, do you know of any group which will help me with little problems I've got with drugs? And as it opens up, we actually find the drugs aren't the problem. The problem is that we wanted to change our feelings in the first place because there was something wrong inside. And I say that with great sadness and a bit of emotion, because that's the truth. You know, only maybe looking back, once you start to feel great and you love life and life is loving to you, do you realize how bad things actually were and how unhappy you were? I don't get depressed or unhappy anymore. I'm not saying that's everyone's experience, but I've got the best chance of living a happy life if I'm good. And the steps have taught me that. I've got rid of my fears and resentments. I've cleared up the wreckage of my past. I've made amends to everyone who needed to have amends made. And now I'm able to go out and help other people on a daily basis and live a great life.
So may I jump in and say that, I mean, that's beautiful stuff, Joe. I'm loving it. And also it's made me think of something that if we're talking about gateways, right? I think especially if we're a teenager, we're looking for a gateway. We need a gateway. And again, it may feel slightly off-piste, but I think it brings a lot of things together in a way that makes sense for me. That in tribes that haven't kind of got to the same place in society that we've got to still have initiation processes. Every society, every culture has initiation processes, which are gateways that then teach you how to be where the rest of the community gets around you and lets you know how to play life and how it's going to work and what your place is in that community. And I think especially for teenagers, they don't really have that anymore. They have that in pseudo varieties. They have that in, well, my initiation is going to go down to the pub and see how pissed I can get on my 18th birthday. Our initiation processes have, in my opinion, become toxic, and they actually promote disconnection rather than connection. And recovery for me is a coming back into connection, is being initiated into a community that makes sense, where I have a place, where I have things to offer. And the solution to my feelings is not a material one, is not a substance-based one. It's the quality of connection I have with somebody else, no matter what my feelings are and no matter who I am, is valued and makes sense within that. And so I think if we're talking about gateways, we all need a gateway, and we're going to find it one way or another. And if you haven't found that, then you're going to find it in an unhealthy way, or you're going to find a community that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it is. It's a whole combination of stuff, isn't it? I mean, you know, that human connection, that need for human connection, and substances disconnect you. No matter how much you think they're going to connect you, they might connect you to a group of people, but they disconnect you from that internal connection and that real connection, that emotional connection, even with the people that you're knocking about with. I completely get it. Absolutely. And I think you're right. You know, recovery it reconnects you in every way, shape and form. It reconnects you with a power greater than yourself. It reconnects you with your community that you want to be with. It reconnects you with your family that you've probably never connected with, you know. And we're just going back one to what you were talking about. So for me, I can only identify my addiction. I didn't use on a daily basis. My addiction, I was a binge drinker and user. And for me, I'm only adding this because I know that a lot of people out there do this, and I get a lot of identification, especially from young women and professional women who binge use drink and binge use cocaine. So for me, the danger wasn't in using it really every day. For me, the danger was in when I started using it. And I didn't know this when I was using it. But what happened once I took that first drink or that first line was I triggered something within me that just had an insatiable thirst for more. And I didn't know that I couldn't stop until I tried to stop. Does that make sense?
Well said.
Yeah. So for me, you know, it wasn't about daily use. Sometimes a daily use, like when I was on holiday, but my addiction was so subtle that it kidded me into thinking that just because I used, like Kev was saying, of a weekend, And that was what kept me and Kevin very sick for a long time. Obviously, we're married and we were in active addiction together. But because Kevin drank on a daily basis, I didn't. I used to sit very high up on a pedestal of judgment, pointing my finger at him and thinking, well, if I was that bad, then I'd have to do something about it. And then binging like a nutter at the weekend, where he would then sit on his pedestal of judgment and say, well, if I drank and used like you when you kicked off, then it was just this constant confusion as to what was a problem and what wasn't a problem. And I think it's so important that we do make these fellowships that, you know, you're talking about Cocaine Anonymous, there's Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, this Family Anonymous. You know, I started off in a family fellowship because I didn't think I was that bad. It's so important that people have these safe places to go to, and that they aren't mysterious. They aren't, you know, cults, or, you know, they're not gonna.
And we have no isms. You know, we have no isms. We have no opinion about outside issues. Although individual members have opinions of their own, and welcome to them, we have no opinion on outside issues. And Claire, on that point, all the fellowships you mentioned then are wonderful. And they are mysterious and they aren't cults, but they are very available and they are in your area. And if someone does feel that they have a problem with drink or drugs, I feel like I'm on Shopping Channel right now.
Oh, but it's good.
That's why we
if someone has a problem with drink or drugs, I would encourage them personally to reach out to one of the fellowships you mentioned, particularly Cocaine Anonymous for myself, because that's where I found the solution. But nonetheless, I drop in and out of different meetings all the time, and it's about hearing the solution. And it's not about how bad you felt. It's about freeing yourself of fears and resentments and having a good life and living your best life. And that can start as soon as you want to. It literally can start as soon as you want to. Just reach out. We've got a helpline. You can read it on the screen. But just to underline that point, it's 0800 612 0225. I don't encourage anyone that feels that they have a problem or want help with a drug or alcohol, or they know someone that does. If they want to get some advice, we're here and we're free. And that's what we're telling the world.
Absolutely. And I shout that from the rooftops. I think it's amazing. And absolutely, if you're in any doubt, just stop by taking that first step. Just be inquisitive. It's not going to hurt you. You know, it could change your life forever. And what also excites me, I mean, I got giddy actually when I was hearing Ed talk about the festivals, because I just think that is genius. I mean, Kev's an actor, so he knows what goes on in, you know, those sorts of worlds. He's a musician. He travels the world internationally doing big gigs and playing with some seriously famous people, and there's a lot of drink and drugs that go on. So, I mean, we've always said this, haven't we, Kev, about there being some sort of support on the road for artists, because there's a lot.
Can I make a point, Claire, that I'd like to ask Kevin? Because I'm an artist, my mum was the best female artist I've ever met. And you always get this trope of Jimi Hendrix rolled out saying, yeah, what did drugs do? Oh, he made the album of blah, 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 blah. I want to tell everyone out there, and I'd like to ask you, Kevin, to reiterate the same. And then I'd love to hear a minute from Ed about joining in with the fact, because there's a lot of opportunities to go to festivals and help spread the word. Yeah. If you're a member of Cocaine Anonymous and you want to get involved, I'd tell them to give us an email, go onto the website, email, and you can get through to Ed. But Kevin, isn't it true? I'm an artist. Yesterday, I did a pitch, and it was probably the most beautiful website we've ever made, and it's stunning. And the company we pitched it to is a company we'd all love to be an artist for, if you like. You know, corporates nowadays, like the big families of the old days, commissioning Picasso and everyone else to do their portraits. That's all we're really doing. But Kevin, as a pure musician, have you still got it in you now that you don't use drugs?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think one of my biggest fears is when I got sober and clean is that, will I still be able to act? Will I still have that? Will I still have that mechanism in my head that's the art to take the words off the paper and to put flesh and bones on that and make that real? Will I be able to do it? Was my whole career beforehand a bit of a sham? Was it all drug induced or alcohol induced? And what I found, and I'm happy to say, is that, if anything, being clean and sober has enhanced those skills.
Yeah.
Because I can see more. I can feel more. But I can gauge what those feelings and what those emotions are. There's no to it, and it doesn't send me off on a wrong path. When I'm looking at a character, how guy, then I'm looking at it and sober eye. It makes me make better decisions as an actor.
Yeah.
Hello.
I heard all that. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
And just to underline the point, not only are you able to focus on the process of creativity is also a process, as well as those abstract connections that you can make as an artist. It also is a process, and you're more present and engaged and able to put in the quality hours of the process. But to finish off, you're also in a really healthy place. You are your best self to then perform. You know, I used to literally be asleep on set. I've got loads of pictures of me on set, different sets all over the place. I'm asleep, slumped in a chair, unless someone's got the number of a drug dealer so I can keep going. Ed, would you mind saying 30 seconds on just, again, a call to action for the festivals?
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. So we have a really great time when we're at festivals. People are really, people turn around to us when we're, you know, having a dance in a tent one evening. I've literally heard this exact same story from so many other people that have come and done it with us, that what happens to them is they're dancing away in a tent. Somebody turns to them and goes, "Hey, what are you on, mate?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't take anything anymore." And they're like, "What? Are you serious? You look like you're having a fucking crazy time, mate." And they're like, yeah, I'm having a great time. I don't need it anymore. And how surprised people are, and it just proves that, like, I can party so much better now that I'm not needing to just hit my sweet spot with what substance is inside me. So you can get in touch. I'll say my email. It's not a particularly professional one. It's just the one I'm using just now for this. So it's kingraisin@hotmail.com. So it's KINGRAISON@hotmail.com, but it's just the most reliable way just now to get through to me. If you email that saying that you're interested in CA Festivals Committee, it works on two levels. Okay, so we have a committee that's like the organizing of it. We need people who are going to organize how the kit's going to get to different parts of the country. It's scrolling across the bottom of the screen now. How the kit's going to get to different parts of the country between festivals. People who are going to like find the crew locally that are going to be at the festival for us, and general organizational stuff. Yeah, that's like the committee roles that CA members with some PI experience can come and join us to get involved in the actual planning and organization of the thing for next year and throughout next year as we go on the road again. And then also, if you don't want to be involved in that side of things and be in loads of meetings and organizing, then equally, if you've got at least a year sobriety behind you, you can come on board to just go to a festival and be part of putting, be chairing, helping to chairing meetings, sharing at meetings, setting the tent up, and being part of a team of like 6 or 8 people who are running that tent for the whole of the festival. You work a rota, so you've got time to enjoy the festival and show other people how you can have fun in recovery at the same time as your responsibilities, whether it be, making the tea for a meeting or sitting on the PI stall for a bit, giving out leaflets to people as they go past. And people end up in great conversations as well. It's not just new addicts that we meet there. There are some festivals we go to where it's mainly professionals that we talk to, people who work in mental health services that come up to us and have massive long conversations with us and didn't know we existed and things like this. So you become a really important part of the front line of recovery and sharing the message if you come on board and get involved with us. So whether it's that you want to be involved in organizational things with the committee, or whether you just want to come to a festival and share your personal recovery by helping to make meetings happen at festivals on the ground, then get in touch with me. Email me, and yeah, we'll get you involved.
And that's kingraisin@hotmail.com. You can also, if for some reason you don't remember that, if you're listening, if you've got a friend that you think is appropriate for, you can also, through any of our Cocaine Anonymous websites, just send an email and we'll make sure it gets to Ed or the right person.
Yeah, and we will put an email in the chat. So this is on Facebook Live. It's also on YouTube. We will put a contact email where people can reach out to directly to CAPI for any inquiries, and Joe or one of his amazing members will get back to you and connect you with the appropriate person, be that Ed or whoever. Do you know what, guys? I could do 2 hours chatting to you. I'm not going to lie. I think it's absolutely critical that people that don't know about Cocaine Anonymous hear about Cocaine Anonymous, because you've demystified so many myths just by coming on and talking. You know, I love the fact that you covered that young people are affected by this illness. I love the fact that you talked about, you know, it's accessible so easily globally, not just in, you know, Brighton or Birmingham, or it's everywhere. There's meetings everywhere and people can reach out and connect so easily. And it's great that you've also, you know, demystified some of the myths around it being a religious organisation, and you've helped explain that. And we've got really positive comments as well. We've got when Ed was emotional, Gail said, you know, she was really touched. Amazing honesty. Thank you so much for sharing that moment. It was a powerful moment, so thank you, Ed. And Jill said, very honest and powerful. Well done to both of you for sharing your stories. Yeah. And do you want to finish us off, Kev?
Actually, before you do go, one of the things that underpins all our meetings is the Serenity Prayer. And I think it's interesting to say the Serenity Prayer because of the meaning behind it, whether because it's pertinent to today in these times or just for our lives in general.
Yeah.
Would you mind saying the Serenity Prayer when we leave as well?
No, we'll do that. Yeah.
We would love to finish off. If you, Joe, I mean, Kev, do you want to add anything? And then what you can do is let Joe lead us out with the Serenity Prayer.
Again, I just want to say thank you to both of you. Very powerful stuff. And I also want to say thank you to our sponsors, the Big Lottery and the Sussex Community Foundation Crisis Fund. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do this. I hope you've enjoyed it today, whoever's out there listening. Please join us again next week. And if you, Joe or Edward, would like to lead us out with the Serenity Prayer, that would be perfect.
As Ed's got King in his name, I'll leave him to lead us out. Thank you.
Okay. So God, grant me the serenity
to accept the things
I can't change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Amen.
Woohoo!
Thanks for everything. Take care. Bye-bye.
Carry on.
And please come back again, won't you, and tell us more about this amazing fellowship.
Absolutely. When will this be posted?
It's being posted live now on Facebook, so we will keep resharing it, and it's also going live to YouTube. And what we do, we have a team of amazing recovery volunteers and business volunteers who help us cut the footage up and keep sending it out, just sharing the message of hope on social media. So yeah, it's on our YouTube channel, which is Kennedy Street CIO. So Kennedy Street CIO.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Guys, thanks for having us. Take care.
Bye.
God bless. Bye.